Hello, it's Alina GG, and today I have a very special guest, Sarah from Spark Practice. She helps revolutionize music practice and gets people performing at their peak while still being nice to themselves. So we have lots to discuss today, and I'm very excited. So welcome aboard, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Lena. I'm so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so let's begin. I've got goosebumps. Let's begin. I like to begin in the present moment. So, right now, you're in this beautiful apartment in Paris with these lovely paintings behind you. And what's going on? You said your partner's just moved in. Let's start with that.
Yeah, well, I'm really lucky to live in Paris. It's been a rocky ride, but to be here is fantastic. And I never had the plan to move to France. I never thought, oh, Paris is amazing, whatever. But when I did move here, it slowly grows on you.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm the kind of person who loves to dive into where I live and try to get to know the culture. And so I learned French and I work here and I live here. And um, I feel like life is a series of huge transitions. And
Wow.
so I'm going through a big transition right now with my partner moving in, like you said, which is exciting and also a little bit scary. And, a lot of what we're going to be talking about is how to support our nervous system enough to hold big things.
Oh my gosh. I love that. That's everything. That's everything. That is it. You are a thought leader. This is cutting edge because this is no matter the topic, no matter the skill or the profession, as we expand our capacity, we are also increasing our ability to hold joy and to enjoy the things that life brings to us or that we work towards, because there's no point in being the best at all these wonderful things if we can't enjoy it, right?
It's part of it. I
Yeah.
mean, I see a lot of people doing really fantastic and beautiful things and disallowing uh, parts of our composition of being a person and parts of our humanity that have the capacity for pleasure and have the capacity for the sort of to appreciate the sublime. Like for me, there's a piece of music that I really love that I think is so beautiful. And even when it's perfect, whatever that means, it can go further. It can be transcendent and it just passes beyond beauty into the sublime.
It's
It's the
not a
slow movement.
Debussy. It's not a Debussy piece, is it?
No, it's Schubert.
Oh, great.
It's the quintet with two cellos. The slow movement is just ecstatic. And, to be able to have that connection with people, we don't necessarily have to be the best technician. We don't have to be the best whatever, but to have the courage to have that connection and to find that with, in this case, four other people, to be able to share that is incredible. But then if you also have the technique and if you also have the musicianship and if you also have those things, I feel like that connection is so much clearer and everybody can participate in it in a really authentic way.
Wow. That's amazing. I will check that piece of music out. Thank you for sharing that. Well, it's really interesting because you refer on your website to neuroscience, and you also are an elite athlete, a rower. And so you must have used your brain in exceptional ways to be able to be so good at, sport and music. And I'm just curious, how do you weave neuroscience into your practice technique?
Well, thank you so much for asking the question. There are a couple things in there that we'll go through really quickly, and then I'll answer your question. Um, the first is that I spent a lot of time alone as a kid, and I did a lot of reading, and I loved to be outside, and I had a hard time integrating, and all of these different things. And so it meant that the time that I spent doing things was playing sports, was trying to find that community. And my sister played the violin, so of course she was my god, my idol, and I absolutely wanted to play music. And so these different things kind of came together in the sense that rowing for me, which was the sport that I went the furthest in, rowing for me became sort of a refuge, but it was also how I could greet the day because we were on the water before 5 a.m. in the backdrop of Seattle, Washington, where, you're you just want to stop and give up and just die on the spot. But at the same time, you have the sun that's peeking over the mountains across the lake with these like layers and layers of foothills. And every single day is magnificent.
Wow. That's a vision.
So yeah, absolutely. And then I find that in other kinds of art and other kinds of poetry and music and writing, like so many expressions, human expressions and understandings. And science is the same. You know, there's so much in the research that's catching up to things that we already knew intuitively. And there are things that we thought intuitively that are being sort of debunked as well. So it's really interesting to see how all of this comes together. And for me, the science part of things and the neuroscience part of things helped me understand and describe sensations that I had or processes that I was looking for and looking for information, definitions. How can we understand these things? And because my interests were really varied, and I also had some chronic health problems, I thought, okay, if I want to overcome these things and I want to work with these things, I need to find a way to be in alignment with my body and my mind. And that's really where neuroscience comes in and supports that conversation.
Wow, that is wonderful the way you just eloquently described that. Thank you. And I would like to also know then on this journey, this diverse journey of your life, what prompted you to go, well, this is my business now. I want to help teachers, students, and professional music performers how to really go to the next level. What prompted that specific transition and forming of your business?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It became sort of a necessity in a way because my path wasn't always the brightest. It wasn't always the easiest. It wasn't always obvious. Um, and at times I was very much alone and had very serious issues. And I know that in the classical music space, particularly, even at top conservatories, and I had the chance to go to amazing conservatories with fantastic teachers, but there are some things that are fundamentally missing from that equation, which are learning how to practice, learning how to learn, learning how to put all of these things together so that this impossible standard that we're held to doesn't tear us down. One of the spark practice mindsets is building versus breaking. How can we create this like fertile soil to learn, to share, to push ourselves? Because it is a place where we push ourselves. In sports, it's the same. But how are we expanding those boundaries and not breaking them, causing harm and causing injury and causing real damage physically and psychologically? So for
Wonderful.
me,
Hmm.
yeah. So for me, spark practice really came out of this desire to strive for excellence. That's never been off the table. I believe that we can each strive for excellence, and that means something different to everybody as well.
Hmm.
But we can strive for excellence and also develop a nurturing relationship with ourselves.
Wow. I mean, I feel like that's something that everyone needs to hear. And really, at the end of the day, it's our own thoughts, our own internal monologue, which is also dictating the quality of our lives and our relationships. So it really is a deep reason to want to have an impact in the world, and that specific, I guess, a gap in the market, really, the old school way of like flogging musicians, and then it's never good enough, right? I remember my classical piano exams when I would usually get an A or an A plus, and one time I got a B plus, and it was like my parents were supportive, but they were kind of outraged because of XYZ, not at me, at the examiner. And it's like there's so much pressure on musicians at that level. I imagine I can only, I'm just sort of spitballing from my own childhood, but I imagine as you get better and better and in more prominent positions and playing it in orchestras, that there would be even more pressure. So it's, yeah, I think dealing with that stress, but then also having those mindset tools to show up every day and to want to get better and to actually want to keep going. I mean, that must be, yeah, a challenge
It's so
sometimes.
funny because, and I'm sorry to interrupt you,
No.
I hear your story so often. You're a musician.
Yeah.
You studied in a serious way. You have this in you, and even though you have this in you, and obviously you were engaged in it, and you wanted to make music and all of those things, and I imagine learn, and I hear um, that there's a context for striving for excellence in you, and maybe in your familial context as well. Um, and so often that just sort of gets beaten out of us, this joy of learning and this joy of getting better at something. And we never stop to celebrate the wins, and we never stop to realize, like, wow, look at everything that I can do now that I couldn't do a year ago. How did I do that? And then say, okay, I can see how I work. Let's do more of that. Let's look at the areas that I want to improve in, balance out the mix. And I asked the question, what makes an excellent performance? And I've gotten the same response across countries, across cultures. It's an interesting musical dialogue with the sort of stage presence and the technical capacity to get it across. All right, so we have our three zones of excellence: mental, musical, and mechanical. But this is true not just for music. This is true for everything. We have a message we want to communicate. We need to be convincing in the way that we communicate it. We need to have the mental skills and a digestive system stress that can hold all of these different things at the same time to say, you know what, I can show up, and I'm safe. I have the opportunity to share something that I want to be here, and I have the opportunity to share something that I care about. And then we also have the technology and the words and the technical capacity to get these things across. So in music, it's the same. However, the story that you just told me, and thank you for sharing that with me, is a story that too many people share. Because instead of saying, this is fantastic, great job, let's learn in this way. And if you want to do this professionally, great. Here are options for that. If this is something that is a moment that we want to celebrate as you move on to other studies, that's fantastic as well. However, I find that even very young, this competition and this sort of pressure that you're describing is put on children in a way that doesn't set us up for success. And you're right, it just gets increasingly complicated. And in the classical music world, it gets very survivor like. Either you can figure it out, or you have the support and tools, or your family's already figured some of it out, or you just suffer through it and hope it gets better. And then you've been doing it for so long that you can't do anything else.
Mm.
Or people say, you know what, I love music, I hated music making, that's not for me. And they do something else.
Yeah.
We don't need to do that anymore.
No, that's right. There's other options, clearly. Wow. Yeah, I'm just wondering, in terms of helping people deal with stress and mindset tools and strategies, can you give an example of something you could use and that you could share?
Yes. So one of my favorite things, and this kind of opens the door to a couple different things I've been working on, but one of my favorite things is absolutely the easiest, which is what I call 4-6 breathing. We breathe in for 4 counts and out for 6. And it sounds so silly, but people just don't do it. And when we get stressed out, when we're running late, when we need to have a moment to ourselves to prepare for something, this is a perfect way to open that door to coming back to what I call nervous system neutral. Being in that centered space where then we have choices about how we want to use our energies. Do you want to do it together?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so in for 4 and out for 6. Go ahead and do it again. In for 4.
So in the nose and out the mouth, or
Any way
even
you want to.
okay. Yeah,
Doesn't
cool.
matter.
Okay.
Yeah. Everybody's
Um,
different. Everybody connects with their center differently. And out the mouth or out the nose, whatever. Okay. So even here, what I love about this is it instantaneously takes us to a place that's just, we take the edge off. And then the key word for me in all of my practices is intention. Spark practice is the intentional practice system. We go beyond deliberate practice. We go beyond the what. We go into the why and the profound how, right?
yeah.
So now we can do one of two things with this. Now we've had a couple breaths. We're going to add intention to it. And I suggest that we first stop by what I call the little plant. There's one of my interns did an animation of the little plant. It's on our Instagram, but it's adorable. But so I invite you and everybody listening, close your eyes for a minute. And at the very bottom of your tummy, imagine a little plant. It could be a tree, it could be a flower, it could be a little sprout, it could be a shrubbery, it could be anything. And when you see your little plant, we're going to ask it a couple questions. The first one is, hey, buddy, how's it going? Hi, friend, how are you doing? And if we don't see it right away and we don't hear it right away, that's totally fine. Okay. And the second question is, how can I support you? What do you need? How can I show up for you today? And when you're ready, come back to the room. You've just meditated and developed a relationship with your inner self. The little plant is awesome. I love the little plant.
It's great. I mean, I really feel that's good for adults and children, because it tapped me right in, um and it just brings in that awareness into a deeper space, and it's just so quick. I mean, that how long did that take? That's seconds, not even minutes. Amazing. You can do that anytime, you could do that anywhere, you could do that before a performance, before practicing, during practicing, other situations in life. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And what I love about it is that it helps us notice what's going on. Just noticing, oh, my little plant has a little leaf that's a little crusty today. I probably should water it and sleep a little bit. you know?
Yeah, I was like, I'm thirsty.
Yeah,
It made me
exactly.
realize
Or
I'm actually really thirsty. Yeah.
okay. And and maybe sometimes it'll be like, I'm scared. But we can also hold big feelings. And so part of peak performance is also developing a relationship with ourselves that's healthy enough to be able to acknowledge and hold big feelings.
Wow.
And so part of this work has developed into a whole new like branch of research but it's called nervous system neutral. And the idea is that we can self-regulate, but we need to learn how. We need some tools for that. Just like we need some tools and a framework for how to practice, if we come into that and we're not self-regulated, it makes it very difficult to show up in a way that's going to be installing the right information in a neurologically aligned way. Yes, absolutely. But we need to be really careful about that self-talk and what else is happening in our mind and the mental game, so that we're building that in as we practice. This is practicing for performance. We're no longer learning in two separate events. We're not learning how to do something and then learning how to do it on stage. We're learning all of these things together. And that's really the Spark practice difference.
Thank you.
But
that's great. Yeah, that makes sense. So you're integrating. Yeah. So it's not separate. It's like, this is how, so when someone's ready to perform on stage, all my piano teacher used to call it the donkey work, and that it's just all there. Yes, it's in your body memory, but this is like, you're dropped in, you're connected, you're aware, you're mindful, you're connected to your breath, you're present, you're embodied, would you say?
absolutely. And another way to describe that for people who might not feel that language yet, because it's a practice to learn these things and learn what it means and learn how it feels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another way to describe it in a little bit more of a technical way is that we have practice brain and performance brain. But before all of that happens, the self-judgment is trash. And so we need to practice recognizing how we trash talk ourselves and take the trash out. And so we tend, as humans, we tend to be hoarders of everything because our brains want to protect us, and our brains are super efficient. So they just keep playing the same song, which means that even if we have bad habits or unhelpful thoughts or stuff like that, we're just playing the same song because that's the most efficient thing. And because practice makes pathways, we need to get in front of that, super highway, say road closed, and then go create a path somewhere in the nature. That's a very challenging thing to do. Learning is an uncomfortable activity. And as adults, we tend to forget that that kind of discomfort is actually helping us expand. Again, building, not breaking, though, because that discomfort, we can go too far and cause harm. So we need this like sweet spot of learning. But anyway, so we take out the mental trash. We practice that practice. I hate it when people talk like this, but I talk like this, whatever. We got to practice the practice, right? And then when we say, okay, my absolute value as a person is awesome. This is non-negotiable. Fantastic. Now we can talk about learning and performing. Practice brain and performance brain. Practice brain is that curious detective. What do I like? What do I not like? Is this the most beautiful that this can be? What's the character of this? What's the color of this? How does this groove happen? Where do I need to lean in and where do I need to lean out? All of those things. And performance brain is that creative ideation. Oh, there's a happy tree over there. Oh, the cave of desolation and despair. And then there's a cloud. And then, and being able to switch back and forth is not magical. It's just like two muscles that we need to develop. And we need to make sure that the membrane between the two is not permeable. So that when we're practicing, we're learning all of these things in a very integrated way. And SPARK is actually an acronym because I am cheesy.
Yes,
but
please.
I like it to be.
Hit me with your acronym.
Yeah. Okay. So SPARK is sound, which is our voice. And this isn't just in music, but it starts in music because that's my story, right? But it can go so much further than that. This is your voice. This is your integrity. This is your character. This is your permission slip to create and be an artist. P is for performance. This is not only the techniques of getting on stage, making sure that I have little rendezvous points to breathe and, let go of everything that happened before and recommit to the music making that's coming up. And all of our little techniques about performance. Oh, I need to take these repeats and do this section again, da 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 da. It's not only that, it's also our digestive system of stress. It's also the nervous system neutral protocol. We notice when we have a big feeling. We support ourselves to come back to neutral. And then we give ourselves a nurturing direction going forward. Notice, support, nurture. It's those things. It's also understanding what our stress profile is and what our stress antidotes are. Because oftentimes when we prepare for performances, we stress ourselves. We make it harder than it is. We'll do sprints, we'll cross train in a difficult way. But we need to do that in a way that when we show up, we stress ourselves, but it's just an opportunity to practice the antidote. Is our capacity to hold this big stuff, these big feelings, this big stress, is it expanding? Am I using the strategies to build this so that I'm expanding? Or am I forcing myself to breakage and seeing if I survive? This is a big difference.
Wow. So it was all of that S, or was that the other ones as well?
That's just P. So S is our sound.
Okay.
P is for performance. A is attuned intonation. So when we're attuned to something, what are we doing? We're listening. So it's not just intonation, it's the harmony. It's where we fit into the music. It's the listening. R is rhythm. This is the groove. This is the structure. Like a classical symphony is a rhythmic voyage in 4 episodes. Do we think about it that way? Not yet. But it is. And as musicians, and in French we say artiste interprète. We're interpreters. We're communicating this music, right? For us to understand the structure means that I can better tell you the story. When I know when to lean in, when to lean out, when to really emphasize a point, but also tell you a secret. All of these different things help to communicate the story that I want to share with you, right? And then the K is kinetic integration. And that's when we're bringing all of these different movements together. We're aligning all the parts of our body, and we're also really making sure that we're building in helpful self-talk, nurturing self-talk. Because as you know, we can say, okay, I'm playing my Hanon, or I'm playing a scale, or I'm doing my vegetable eating technical practice. Okay, this doesn't work. I'm stupid. Okay, it didn't work again. I'm really stupid. And then years later, you play this thing, and the signature is, okay, I can do it now, but I'm still stupid. That's not helpful. So while we're learning all of these little skills and while we're putting them together, we have to accept a few things. Learning is uncomfortable. We can do it in a safe way. We can push ourselves and grow and learn. The Spark Practice mindsets, the first one is curiosity versus judgment. If I know how it's going to go already and I know that I'm going to fail already, game over. Instead of, how does that work? Oh, this person kind of makes me jealous. That means that that's something that I'm curious about. How did they get there? What do they do differently? Then we have fixed versus growth. I can learn. I can get better at stuff. Then we have courage versus fear. Every decision we make is based in either courage or fear. We can come to the same result, but we can do it from very different motivations. I'm going to courageously do this thing that kind of scares me, not because I'm afraid and I'm going to do it anyway, but because this comes from a place of open love, courage. Let's go do this thing, and I can learn, and I'm curious about how this works. So let's do it.
Yeah.
Then we have lack versus abundance. Abundance, the things we need will be there. As my nervous system grows to hold bigger things will come. The right thing will show up at the right time.
My gosh.
Then we have build.
What's that next bit? Sorry, this is like a life-changing conversation. I just had to just say that out loud. And also, no, really, the way you're articulating everything is building new synapses in my brain. And I heard the other day, courage is the precursor to confidence. So I want to be more confident, but first comes courage. First comes the growth, which is out of my comfort zone. Boom. Yes. Okay.
First comes curiosity.
Curiosity. Yes.
Because to get out, but I echo, amen, all the things. And yay, because this is great. Okay. So the last mindset before I forget, because my ADHD brain is so excited about so many things. The last mindset is building versus breaking. And this is the idea that stress is not inherently bad. We need stress to learn, to grow, to test different things, to decide what we want, what we don't want, what we like, what we don't like, all of those things. To build that capacity to hold bigger stuff, right? Bigger opportunities, bigger relationships, a bigger relationship with ourselves, bigger stages in the musical sense, And really it's that question of, okay, I'm curious, I can grow, I can act with courage, I allow myself to act with courage. What I need will show up, and as I grow, more will show up, and the right things are showing up for me. And then sometimes we want to be the Lamborghini that goes at full speed all the time. Well, that drives us straight into the wall of burnout. So we need to learn, and this is part of where the neuroscience comes in. We need to learn how to work with our system so that we are building. We know when to lean in. We know when to lean out. We know when to rest. Because rest is when we do our filing and our repairing and all of that. We need that. But rest can be a productive part of practicing and getting better. And learning that that's part of a system that supports everything we're trying to do has been one of the biggest things that a lot of elite performers, before they really get to the top levels, they forget that rest is part of making progress.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's right. I mean, to be at a peak top tier level, it's not sustainable to go 100% all the time because, people do burn out because we're humans. And I mean, I'm curious, what's one of your favorite types of ways to rest?
Well, sleep is a pretty good one.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got a full moon here at the moment, and it was just charging me up last night. I was like really, so sleep sounds great. Do you like picnics?
Yeah, I do like picnics. So my favorite ways to rest and recharge, sleep is definitely one of them. I love being in nature. In Paris, it's a little bit harder, but I have a park that's not too far away, so that's great. Also, it sounds very silly, but the 4-6 breathing, and you give an intention to it. And I do mindset resets and mindful mornings in the practice room, which is our membership. And it's just an opportunity to breathe together for a minute or two and give that intention. And for me, rest really means reconnecting with that calm, peaceful center and asking what I need. And for me, intention really starts with how I want to feel. So if I want to feel rested and recharged, some days that's a picnic and some days that's a face plant. But I need to check in and say, okay, well, you know, I'm human. It's different every day. I try to be in an environment that has interesting cultural stimuli because that's important to me. I try to be in an environment where there are trees. I have a couple plants. I'm really good at killing plants, but I've kept a couple alive for a few years now, so I'm very proud of myself. But everything is different. Sometimes it's going and hanging out with friends. Sometimes it's going to shake it at a, you know, at a club or a bar. Rest and recharge is different for everybody all the time. However, the things that we tend to want to do the most, like sleep, like step outside for a second, have a hug with somebody that we care about. For me, that's a way of resting. It's a way of co-regulating. It's a way of coming back home to myself.
Mm, that's beautiful. Yeah. It's lovely to look at it in a new way, right? In a different way. Yeah, just hearing you describe all of that, how you can weave in moments of rest in different ways. I think that's lovely. It's very nurturing. Thank you. And
Yeah.
so,
Well,
yeah. Oh, sorry. What else have you got there?
I was just gonna say, uh, rest happens in so many different ways, and it doesn't have to be a giant experience that takes hours. In the Spark Practice timer, because the whole idea is that I've researched these tools, I found some really cool stuff with all of my, you know, diverse background, which didn't make sense for years and years and years, and finally it did. So, oh, yes. But in the Spark Practice timer, it's sort of a modified Pomodoro method for musicians. 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. Every half hour, take 5 minutes. You'll get so much more productivity and progress out of that half hour if a sixth of that is rest. Just take a minute and do some 4-6 breaths. Just do 6 of them. They take 10 seconds each. 6 breaths can change your day.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. So, Sarah, how can people find you and work with you and engage with this? I mean, this is so powerful. What you're offering. Yeah. What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Thank you. Well, I'm on Instagram at Spark Practice. The website is sparkpractice.com. Um, for professional, pre-professional, and we also have teachers and some amateur musicians. I have a couple different classes. One of them is the foundations, where we go through, you know, each pillar of Spark Practice with specific strategies, and you walk out with a toolbox based on our preparation cycles and all of that, of tried and tested strategies um, for neurologically aligned healthy musical excellence. And then there's another class that's starting this year called Practice for Performance, where I take people step by step through laying the groundwork with the mindsets, laying the groundwork with our relationship with ourselves, building and following the elite training cycle of sports, you know, how to learn in a neurologically aligned way over 2 months. So we go through an entire training cycle through loading, which is sort of woodshedding, the conversion phase, exposing ourselves to little doses of stress through competition or recording or like the big concert, through evaluation, how to talk to ourselves about how things went constructively, and then rest, how to rest productively and what that means for everybody. And then there are 2 other ways. One of them is Artist's Way Paris, which I run an Artist Way chapter here, and we do it online. So we have people from around the world.
Wow, that's so inspiring. I love Julia Cameron. That's amazing. The
Yeah, well,
Artist's Way changed my life like 20 years ago with morning pages, and it's incredible. That's makes perfect sense that you would be doing that.
and I come at it from like a very nerdy way. I'm not so into the God stuff, so I encourage people to get a Sharpie at the beginning of the trip through the book. I call it a trip through the book. So I do it once a year at the beginning of the year. And if people join the trip on the book, like through the book, then it has to be, again, we're just developing that relationship with ourselves. Whatever we want to do with that relationship and whatever our goals are and whatever our ambitions are, That's very personal. However, we all can have a nurturing, healthy relationship with ourselves.
And our
And
creativity as well, right? A creative
yeah,
expression. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
So at Spark Practice and at Nervous System Neutral, yeah, come check out The Artist Way, come check out Spark Practice. And this has been a really incredible experience. I'm so excited to know that you're a pianist and that you have all of this in you as well as everything else that you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, what you've been studying for many years and formulating and integrating and what I just feel thrilled that you've joined me today. So thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you. Have a nice day. We've been through a lot,
Yeah,
but I hope that it nourishes where it needs to.
I'm sure it will. Thank you so much. See ya.